This is just a little video I've made to go over the word fear and what it meant to Jesus Barabbas. The exact phrase, do not fear, or variations like fear not and do not be afraid appear between 70 and 170 times in the Bible, depending entirely on the translation you use. The 365 times myth. You may have heard a popular viral claim on platforms like Instagram and Facebook stating that God says, do not fear exactly 365 times, one every day of the year. While this is an encouraging thought, a literal phrase search shows that it is a myth. No standard translation contains the phrase exactly 365 times. Exact counts by translation. Bible software searches use tools like Bible Gateway outline how often the exact phrase or direct variation appears across different variations. King James Version, fear not, or be not afraid appears roughly 103 to 115 times. The New International Version, direct commands not to fear appear roughly 70 to 82 times. New Revised Standard Version commands do not fear appear about 170 times. Broadly counting fear. If you expand your search perimeters beyond direct commands, the number changes significantly. All commands against fear and anxiety. If you tally up every single variation, including adjacent concepts like do not be anxious, do not worry, or have peace, scholars map out roughly 145 versions. The word fear entirely. If you look up the word fear by itself, it shows up over 500 times in the King James Version and 336 times in the NIV, though many of these refer to the fear of the Lord, or people experiencing terror rather than a reassuring command. Jesus directly commanded people not to fear or be afraid multiple times throughout the Gospels. He spoke these words to comfort his disciples during terrifying storms, to reassure grieving parents, and to encourage his followers facing persecution. Key moments Jesus said, do not fear. During storms at sea, when the disciples saw Jesus walking on water and thought he was a ghost, he immediately said, take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. Matthew 14:27, Mark 6:50, and John 6:20. In the face of death. When a synagogue leader named Jairus was told his daughter had died, Jesus turned to him and said, don't be afraid, just believe. Mark 5:36 and Luke 8:50. When discussing everyday worry, reassuring his followers and God's protection, Jesus said, don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Luke 12:7 and Matthew 10:31. To his small group of followers, Jesus used a comforting metaphor to assure them of their eternal security, saying, do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Luke 12:32. After the resurrection, when Jesus met the woman at the empty tomb on Easter morning, his very first words to them were, do not be afraid. Matthew 28:10. How Jesus addressed fear. Scholarship tracked through reference tools like openbible.info shows that Jesus did not treat fear as a moral failure. Instead, he used the phrase as a fatherly comfort to shift his followers' focus away from their immediate terrifying circumstances and towards God's presence and power. Keep in mind, the Christ does signs and wonders. Jesus Barabbas heals, comforts, feeds, etc. He isn't looking for a reaction, generally fear-based out of the people. He came to free us. It's Yahweh that's looking for the fear. In addition to the previous examples, Jesus gave the command to not fear or not be afraid in several other specific settings across the Gospels. These instances primarily occurred when prepping his disciples for physical danger, manifesting his divine glory, or offering a final farewell before his death. 1. Facing persecution and enemies. During his major commission to the disciples in Matthew 10, Jesus repeatedly tells them not to fear the hostile public or corrupt rulers who will oppose them. Fear of exposure, so having no fear of them, for nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, and nothing secret that will not become known. Matthew 10:26. Fear of physical harm. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Matthew 10:28, Luke 12:4. At the Transfiguration. When Jesus took Peter, James, and John up on a mountain, his face shone like the sun, and God's voice spoke from a cloud. The disciples fell face down in sheer terror. Divine reassurance. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, get up and do not be afraid. Matthew 17:7. 3. The Last Supper farewell. On the night before the crucifixion, Jesus comforted his troubled disciples as he prepared them for his departure, a legacy of peace. Peace I leave with you, peace I give to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. John 14:27. 4. Miraculous catches of fish. At the very beginning of his ministry, after performing a miracle that filled Simon Peter's boat with so much fish they began to sink, Peter fell at Jesus' knees in awe and fear. Number 5. In post-resurrection vision, the book of Revelation, while outside the four Gospels, the New Testament records Jesus appearing one final time in a vision to the Apostle John on the island of Patmos. John fell at his feet as though dead. The eternal Christ, then he places his right hand on me and said, "Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last." Revelation 1:17. There's so much to say about all this stuff. This is what is pushed at us in their narrative, and even using the computer or the internet to search things, it's being pushed at us. The very last statement, I am the first and the last. He was the firstborn. Jesus is the only begotten. There's a difference. And there's a difference in who said what as far as do not be afraid. Matthew 10:28 and Luke 12:4 both emphasize the importance of fear of God rather than fear of earthly threats. Matthew 10:28 states, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell." The words that are wrapped around in a red border are what I say Jesus Barabbas said, and what's in black underline is Yahweh's words, because Yahweh's the one who pushes fear. Jesus' message is always lifting you up. It's not holding you in fear or any other negative emotion. Luke 12:4 similarly states, "I tell you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body and after that can do no more." Can do no more. You can't say that statement and then follow it up with, "But I will show you whom you should fear. Fear him who, after your body has been killed, has authority to throw you in hell." We are in hell. It's almost laughable at this point. The Christ narrative often adds to the sentences of Jesus Barabbas. How you know this? By the character. Our Heavenly Father has no darkness in him. So who are we told to be afraid of? Yahweh Satan. He can absolutely kill the body, no doubt, but he cannot kill the soul spirit. The whole 365 times once daily, do not fear is a farce, and of Yahweh Satan, another way to hook people into believing in the Old Testament small g God. The most important thing to do when reading anything in the Bible is to remember character. Why would Jesus need to do or say some of the things we're told to believe that actually come from the Christ narrative? Jesus Barabbas didn't have an agenda. He had a purpose. His purpose was to set us free of everything. Fear, being slaves to religion, doctrines, Bible versions, government propaganda. Just live until we go home and carry that joy and be a light. I personally can tell you how hard it is these days to be a light and to find or feel joy. I continuously have to bring myself back to the remembering why Jesus came and what exactly he did for us. I have to do this every day, and lately it's getting hard. So as I encourage you, I'm also encouraging myself, because I need it right now. I love you guys. For God, our Father, has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. 2 Timothy 1:7 emphasizes that God, Father, empowers those who believe in him to overcome fear through his Spirit. Power. This Spirit grants strength and courage to face challenges to carry out his mission. Love. It fosters compassion and selflessness, enables individuals to love others and act with kindness. Self-control. To encourage careful control over our actions, helping to maintain emotional stability and balance. This verse serves as a reminder that fear is not a characteristic of our Father's Spirit, but rather a hindrance to living in Yahweh Satan's world. These words come from the false apostle Paul. However, we know they superimpose Jesus Barabbas' words on top of their Christ narrative. Again, whose character is speaking? Always. The phrase, "I do not give you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind," comes from the apostle Paul speaking to Timothy in 2 Timothy 1:7, not from Jesus directly. Content and attributations. This statement appears in the New Testament in 2 Timothy 1:7, where Paul writes to his young disciple Timothy, offering encouragement and instruction. The verse reads, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-discipline," a more literal rendering of the sound mind. Here, Paul emphasizes that God has endowed believers with a spirit characterized by strength, love, and self-control, directly countering fear or timidity. Paul wrote this letter during his imprisonment, aiming to strengthen Timothy's faith and courage as he led the church amid persecution. The spirit of fear is contrasted with the divine qualities of courage and discipline, empowering Timothy to faithfully continue his ministry. Distinction from Jesus' words. While Jesus provided many teachings on fear and courage in the Gospels, do not be afraid in Matthew 10:28 to 31 or John 14:27. The specific phrase, do not fear, but of a sound mind, does not appear in Jesus' recorded words. Instead, the wording is a Pauline encouragement meant for Timothy's guidance and application to all believers as a principle of divine empowerment. Paul was a false apostle and was on Team Yahweh, even if he was controlled opposition to the Christ narrative. Yahweh could have said these words to Paul, but Yahweh would never have meant them. He is dualistic and always did the opposite to what he said. But Jesus Barabbas would have said this and meant it. It was in Jesus Barabbas' character. He loved the world so much, he came to free us of all the oppressor did to us. This would have been good advice coming from him. Do not fear. Father is light. There is no darkness in him. Jesus did say, do not fear. Believe him. John 12:44. Whoever believes in me does not believe in me alone, but in the one who sent me. John 5:24. Verily, verily, I say to you, that he that heareth my words and believe him that sent me hath eternal life, and come not into judgment, but hath passed out of death into life. Listen to Jesus Barabbas' words only. These are awesome words of a wise young girl that I recently spoke to. You know, I don't even like to give him credit. I like to act like he doesn't even exist and just shift my focus to Jesus. He can protect me and push the storms away. He said it himself. The one that comes from above is above all. So he is powerful and them and has power over them. Anything. She is shy and would like to remain anonymous.